First and foremost, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash, and I want to give double honors to the outer bishops and apostles like Very Millstone that taught me his truth. But today I wanted to go back to the basics and talk about how in this truth, in this path we're on, the majority of the fights, right, the temptations that are gonna come upon us is all spiritual, right? It's a constant battle between your flesh and your spirit, right? And one thing I learned is that you one of the ways Satan attacks you is your thoughts, right? Those ideas, those that little voice you have in your head, right? That he can plant seeds like that, right? Because not all the thoughts you have are yours, okay? And you have to quickly assess that and quickly check it, because some days you might wake up and you just don't feel like doing anything that pertains to the Lord, right? You just have that spirit on you, like, damn, like I'm done, like I'm tired, like I don't want to do this, right? And that's Satan. That's a spirit he's throwing on you, right? Those thoughts, because how Satan works is he'll put a little seed, right? He'll put a thought in your head, and if you keep dwelling on that thought, that seed, it's gonna actually come to fruition, because before any action is performed, before you do anything, it all starts initially in your mind, right? As a thought. Oh, should I do this? And then if you perceive that, if you if you think that's a good idea, right? If somehow you convince yourself that you should do that, you end up doing it, right? It all goes back to your thoughts. So just like that, you might have evil ass thoughts to do just complete abominations, and you have to check that, right? You have to rebuke the tempter, which is Satan. Rebuke those thoughts, because not all the thoughts you have are yours. Okay, but let's get to scriptures now, and we'll build off these. This is Ephesians chapter 6, and I'll start at verse 10, and this is labeled the armor of God. It says, "Finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord and in the power of his might. Put on the whole armor of God, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil." Right? And the armor of God, two main weapons we have is prayer and fasting. Right? With those two, hey, we can overcome anything that comes our way. But it says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." Right? The majority of our fight is all spiritual. It's all spirits that are trying to mess with us, right? Have you in a certain type of mood, have you go off, have you say something that's out of pocket, right? Everything we do is all spiritual. So knowing this, you have to sift. You have to know. You have to be circumspect of what you're thinking, if you're in the right spirit or not, and ultimately know that why, right? Know why it's happening, because there's a difference of living your life knowing that those thoughts you're thinking are not yours, right? Why you're feeling that way, right? And it's ultimately because you're being tempted, right? Temptation. Those spirits, those evil spirits, are trying to put you in a different type of mind state to have you go off, right? That's a key ingredient that we have to know in this faith, is that not all your thoughts are your thoughts. And how it says right here, we don't wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, powers, rulers of darkness, against spiritual wickedness in high places, right? But let's get another one I have here. It says, this is 2 Corinthians chapter 10, and I'll start at verse 3. It says, "For though we walk in the flesh, we do not war after the flesh." Right? So because what that's saying is, though we're in the flesh, we do not fight like the flesh, because the flesh, if it has any problems, it's going to want to go straight to the physical, right? Straight to what the flesh likes, right? Straight to the hands. That's what the flesh wants. But verse 4 says, "For the weapons of our warfare are not carnal, but mighty through God to the pulling down of strongholds." Right? The weapons of our warfare are not carnal, right? It's all spiritual, right? Rebuking Satan in the name of Yahweh Bahashim Yahweh Shai, right? Praying to the Lord, hey, help me with this, right? Fasting to literally strengthen your spirit and deprive your flesh, right? Those are our main weapons we have, and none of that is carnal, right? It's all spiritual, right? If you are having a problem with someone, you don't just resort to just fisting it out, right? Just throwing hands with them. That's very carnal, right? We resort to the spiritual ways of dealing with brothers, okay? Verse 5 says, casting down imaginations and every high thing that exalteth itself against the knowledge of God, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach, right? Because with our weapons, right, with the knowledge we have, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding of the scriptures, we pull down these strongholds that are thrown over our people, right? Primarily that Christianity, the Renaissance Christianity, and anything else associated to just lies, right? Any of these other religions, you could break them down with the proper understanding of the Bible and what's going on, right? You can rebuke these spirits with the understanding of the Bible, right? The true understanding. But I like this verse because it says, and bringing into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach, right? How we were just talking about how our thoughts can deceive us, right? But with what we know now, it says that to bring into captivity every thought to the obedience of Hamashiach, right? We're constantly meditating on, hold up, did what I just thought about, right? That thought that just came into my mind, was that wicked or righteous, right? Was that of me, or is that Satan trying to tempt me, right? Or we're putting that thought, we're filtering it through Hamashiach, Yahweh Shai, okay? But hey, the majority of the fights you're going to go through, the majority of the temptations, the afflictions you're going to go through is mentally, right? It's all mentally. How people say in this world is me versus me. But in reality, how we just read, it's me versus all these evil spirits, which are in my head. Right? So we have to be aware of that and constantly check yourself, right? Examine yourself. And realize that not all your thoughts are your thoughts. That's a key point. Okay? But the next verse I have, next scripture, is Galatians chapter 5, and I'll start at 16. It says, this I say then, walk in the Spirit, and ye shall not fulfill the lust of the flesh. Right? Because if you walk after the Spirit, you're going to do things of the Spirit. Right? You're not going to accomplish the lust of the flesh. The more you walk in the Spirit, the weaker your flesh is. The more you walk in the flesh, the weaker your spirit is. Right? That's why it's a constant battle every single day of the spirit and the flesh. Right? Which one are you walking towards today? And that's what you have to focus on. But verse 17 says, for the flesh lusteth against the spirit, and the spirit against the flesh, and these are contrary the one to the other, so that ye cannot do the things that ye would. Right? It's a complete dynamic of the flesh and the spirit. Right? Everything the spirit wants, the flesh does not want you to do. Everything the flesh wants, the spirit does not want you to do. Right? That's why the scriptures refer to our bodies as chains of darkness. Because everything the flesh wants is complete wickedness, complete darkness. Right? Nothing that benefits us. Just complete, just pleasure. Right? But the things of the spirit are everlasting, righteous. Right? They're what the Lord pertains for us to do. It's for us to have just complete order, right? That's what the Spirit brings. Everlasting life, immortality. Okay? So it's important that it's a constant battle, right? Keep that in mind. But another one to go into this is Matthew chapter 26 and verse 41. It says, watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. The spirit indeed is willing, but the flesh is weak. Right? Your spirit is willing to do the things that are required. Right? To read every day if that's upon you. To make lessons if the spirit's on you, to prophesy. right? To learn something new every day. The spirit is willing, right? You have that thought in your head like, yeah, I should do this. But then it comes time around and your flesh is telling you like, that's a burden, right? Like, I don't know if I can do that. Like, I'd rather go do this. If instead of reading, I'd rather go watch shows. I'd rather just, you know what I mean? Everything that is of this world is what your flesh wants to do. That's why it says that the flesh is weak, but the spirit indeed is willing. And if we break down the beginning, it says, "Watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation." And one thing about that is, let me see if I can get it. Temptation. Temptation. Um. Yep. This is James chapter 1, verse 13. It says, "Let no man say when he is tempted, I am tempted of God, for God cannot be tempted with evil, neither tempted he any man." Right? When you get tempted, hey, it's not Yahweh, Bahashim, Yahweh Shai doing that. It's Satan. Right? It's these evil spirits. It says, "But every man is tempted when he is drawn away of his own lust and enticed. Then lust hath conceived, it bringeth forth sin, and sin when it is finished, it bringeth forth death." Right? And that lust is the flesh. When you walk according to the flesh, it ultimately leads to your death. Right? You're just walking in the path of death because you start to sin. Right? But that it just made me think about that scripture when we read this, that watch and pray that ye enter not into temptation. Right? Because we're not tempted of the Lord. Right? The Lord doesn't tempt you. So you have to also keep that in mind when you have one of those thoughts of you should do something that you're not supposed to do, right? It's not the Lord, right? It's Satan, and that's when you're ultimately being tried and tested. That's where your true character is going to come out on what you do, right? How much is your spirit built up to resist that, right? But let's get a couple scriptures not to go into that point we just brought out about Satan. This is James chapter 4 and verse 7. It says, "Submit yourselves therefore to God. Resist the devil and he will flee from you." Right? Because one thing about your thoughts, your emotions, is they're not permanent. Right? They're not permanent. It's all temporary. So if you just wait it out, right, you you realize, hold up, this is Satan just tempting me. Like, nah, he's not gonna overcome me. Right? I'm not gonna do that. He will leave, right? Any temptation you have, if you resist it, you'll get over it, right? Because the devil, right, Satan is not gonna be on you 24/7 like that, right? It talks about he comes and goes, right? He comes for a season then goes. So you have to resist him, right? You can't fold and you have to keep frame. But another to add to that, this is First Peter chapter 5 and verse 8, and it says, "Be sober, be vigilant, because your adversary the devil, as a roaring lion, walketh about seeking whom he may devour." Right? He's constantly on the prowl looking at who he can take up, right? Who can he destroy? Right? He sees an Israelite over there. Oh, he's not built up. Right? That guy doesn't have a foundation. Let me see if I can throw something in his mind to get him to go off, to get him to go commit adultery. Right? He's constantly looking at who he can take over and who he can devour, as it says. So we have to make sure that, hey, we're building ourselves up in the spirit, right? Having a foundation and constantly rebuking your thoughts, right? Rebuke the tempter, Satan, right? Rebuke your thoughts and realize that the fight we fight, majority of the time, is all spiritual, right? It's all spiritual. It's all in your head. So, just wanted to bring that out, and hopefully this was edifying to someone. But with that, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. And I want to give double honors to the elder bishops and apostles of Great Millstone that taught me this truth. Shalom to the elect. Shalom.